Hey everyone, Terry here. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about the set for UNVOID and how I went about constructing it. This relatively minimal setup was actually pretty difficult to pull off due to several factors, not the least of which was the fact that I was shooting this in a relatively modest one-car garage. In fact, to give you an idea of just how small this space was, here's a shot of what it looked like while I was painting it. You can see just how relatively cramped the space was going to be. I knew going in that the set itself was not going to be nearly big enough to allow for the sense of scale I was after with these wide shots, so I knew that some form of compositing was going to be necessary in post no matter what. The question then became, how do I prepare for this ahead of time, and what do I choose to actually shoot in order to make my life hopefully a little bit easier in post? My choices were to either shoot against green screen and basically create the background out of whole cloth, or go into it with the intention of doing a more traditional type of optical compositing, and therefore the set would need to be fairly plain and kind of nondescript. I've learned in my travels with film and video that I'm generally better off avoiding green screen if I can help it, and since I knew that I wanted the final product to have a very dark, low light, kind of atmospheric look to it, I would just go ahead and roll the dice on painting the set a flat black, which would allow me to increase the apparent size of the room using various layers of photographic plates and other assets once I got into post. So what we're looking at here is one of the wide shots from the film. This is the finished product with all the compositing to extend the sides and obviously the atmospheric layers and color correction, etc. All of the particle effects, the smoke, the embers, the various layers of lighting effects, that's all 100% added in after the fact in post. None of that was actually in the room. So let's strip all of that away and look at just the original shot from the camera. This is the original shot straight out of camera. No color, no compositing, no effects. This is a bit dark for our purposes here, so I'm going to crank up the exposure by a couple of stops so we can get a better look at what's actually going on here. You can see here just how narrow the room was in camera, and this simply was not going to work for the look and the feel of the film. But by painting everything one solid color and being very selective about lighting, I was able to assemble a set of layers of photographic plates and original shots, photographic plates like this one right here. And by stacking them and arranging them and cutting them up, I was able to combine them with the original shot of the character in a way that works pretty well and fools the eye as to how wide the room actually is. You'll notice it still looks sort of off here, but when we drop the exposure back down to where it should be, you'll see how everything sort of just starts to blend together pretty well. And once you add back in the atmosphere, the smoke, the fog, the embers, along with the color correction and everything else, it really starts to come together. The only other element that I knew would be important to get in camera was the debris on the floor. This was supposed to be essentially a barren rock, almost like an asteroid or something, a brand new planet, if you will. So the idea of some kind of volcanic ash in the air and on the ground made sense to me. The solution there turned out to be black construction paper that I blended, if you can believe that, in order to get the desired texture and look to the individual pieces. I probably chopped up about, 100 sheets of the stuff to get enough to cover the set floor. Aside from that, it's just a bit of styrofoam carved into the shape of rocky outcrops and shards of rock, painted it all black and glued it to the floor. I lit the set with a few LED panels overhead, very minimal lighting setup. It was important that these shots feel as though this space was bigger than what the camera could actually capture, and that it was this large, empty, endless void. And so the visual trickery was always going to be necessary to achieve that, no matter how I chose to go about it. I had to do this process over and over again for about 15 different shots in the film. So figuring this all out and getting just this much compositing done probably took about a week in post, and then I was able to move on to other things. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.